Hello, BagaPie integrates a complete set of tools for scattering designed to be as fast and easy to use as possible. For example, I select two assets in my viewport, choose my scattering surface, and scatter them on it. On the right, I access settings to the layer I just created. In this demo, I will use the BagaPie Assets library. This library has allowed BagaPie to grow while remaining free. In my Pie menu, you can see that besides Scatter and Scatter Paint, there's an Asset Browser button. This lets me utilize selected assets from the asset browser. For instance, I can choose these two assets. I pay attention to not be in the all library, but any other library will function. I select my surface, and BagaPie recognizes that I have selected assets, so I can click on Asset Browser. BagaPie will import the assets and set up the scattering layer. I now have a layer for my rocks and a layer for my bushes. Here, I can rename them to keep things organized. I will hide them. Let's check out paint mode now. Under the scatter section, you'll see scatter paint. It's basically the same scattering, but it will switch to paint mode automatically. When I click on scatter paint asset browser, it will change to paint mode according to what I've selected in my asset browser. The end panel contains the various settings for my scattering system. I have the option to reverse my paint, and I can modify the brush profile, such as choosing a softer brush or a sharper one. I can remove or add and clear everything. Lastly, exit paint mode. BagaPie's painting system uses vertex groups that can be swapped in the layers. If needed, you can remove the layers. A new feature in this version of BagaPie is the introduction of a dedicated scattering panel right in the asset browser. This panel has everything required to set up an environment. I will delete all my layers. Let's say I select this asset. I select my surface. Scatter selection. It creates a new layer. Here, I have the minimum needed to configure my layer. If necessary, I can add an asset to the layer or create a new one. The content of the layer is shown below. Now let's see how to control a layer's content. I'm doing a basic scattering. I navigate to Tools. Here, I can add or remove an asset from the layer. This is my collection of assets, and here is the list of them. Under Add Asset, you can find the source for this asset. This means that if I select my asset in my viewport, then my surface and the layer to which I want to add this asset, and I click Add Asset with the 3D view as source, it will be added to that layer. However, I can also directly pick my assets from the asset browser. I just need to provide the asset browser as the source. To remove an asset, you must select that asset, the surface, the layer to which that asset belongs, and click Remove Asset. It does not work from the asset browser. You must select it in the 3D view. Below, you can see the assets in the layer, which can be selected. You have the option to switch them to bounding box, which is strongly advised for scene optimization, or activate the proxy for a more visual effect, or just take them out of the layer entirely. Below, you can enable the proxy for all elements in the layer, or remove them. In Transform, you will simply find the transform settings for the assets, including their position, rotation, and also the minimum or maximum scale. This allows you to randomize their scale quite easily. Below, you have all the random transforms. The most commonly used is the rotation on the z-axis. Finally, there are the masks. The mask allows you to manage the distribution of assets, increase the factor to use it at 100%, and increase scale. I will adjust the density for better visibility. The offset helps to spread the mask more or less, while the smooth feature softens the mask's edges. Finally, the position allows you to adjust the mask pattern. You can also simply invert the mask. Note that here, you can copy and paste the mask parameters. This is extremely useful for certain environments. Here, I will scatter these two assets and paste the mask settings here. Make sure you don't confuse the layers. We copy here and paste there. I can flip the masks to place my bushes outside the rocks. You can also tweak the offset to avoid collisions. This functionality is highly useful for preventing repetitive patterns. On this render, you can see a scattering effect without textures and another one with textures. I recommend this approach for realistic results. I have 3 flower layers, for example. On my first layer, I'm going to set up my mask copy the parameters, paste these parameters onto my other masks, and simply offset the mask. The last important thing is to address the main scattering parameters. The minimum distance defines the space between multiple assets. It's very useful to prevent asset collisions. The maximum density indicates the number of points per square meter. If the collisions between your assets are not bothersome, for example with grass, I recommend setting the minimum distance to 0 and to only distribute your assets using max density. Viewport display manages visible asset proportions, but they will all be disabled during rendering. Align normal manages alignment with the surface, and the seed will change the randomness. Now let's look at the effectors. These are ways to create new masks. First is the point effector. Let's say I have an object. My assets are scattered and I want no rocks nearby. I select this object, I select my surface, and I choose the layer to which I will apply the effector J, point effector. When I access the point effector, I can control the minimum and maximum distances for my instances. For a sharp result, keep min and max values close together. If min becomes larger than max, the mask inverts. If there are multiple layers, you will need to repeat the operation for each layer. I will remove my effectors. The other type of effector is camera culling. It allows you to remove assets that are outside the camera's field of view. We select the camera, we select our surface, choose the layer where the camera will be assigned. J, camera culling. In case camera culling is detected, BagaPie will provide a button that allows you to assign camera culling to any layer. If there are still objects disappearing within the camera's field of view, you have the option to raise the ratio. Scattering can slow things down on some systems, which is why we included safety features in BagaPie, to avoid overloading your computer in case you scatter over a very large area. When I scatter these assets on this surface, BagaPie will recognize that the total poly count of these instances is above the defined limit in the add-on settings. Thus, I can decide to activate the proxy and show only a portion of these instances. The proxies will be displayed. I can then reveal all my instances again. And if I go to Tools, I can remove the proxy or put it back. If you go to BagaPie's Preferences, in Scattering Preferences you have several options. The first is to enable proxy by default. You set a poly count limit for your assets. In this case, 1 million. This means that every asset I scatter that has more than 1 million polygons will automatically have a proxy modifier. The second option, Use Security feature for scattering, sets a maximum poly count for your scene. By default, it's 10 million. If camera culling is present, it will be used automatically. Also note that if your surface does not have a scale applied, it will prompt you to apply the scale of your surface, because in some cases this can greatly increase the number of instances. At the bottom of the BagaPie panel, there's a button to save in GeoPack, which lets you save all your layers as scattering presets. For instance, in the GeoPack Pie menu here, I could create these presets directly using this button. If I invoke them, it will replace my scattering. I can therefore reuse previously created scattering presets. For this feature, I encourage you to check out the dedicated tutorial.
Thanks for your time. If you have a few minutes, check out our other add-ons and assets. I hope BagaPie helps you. Thanks.